Hello, everyone, and this is going to be another Wolfshead Roundtable, and I'm joined by my good friends Rob Miller and Rich Walker. And this will be the third one that we've done, the third Wolfshead Roundtable conversation, and the first two proved to be quite popular, somewhat controversial among certain quarters. We're going to be talking for however long we talk about whatever we fancy talking about. Great to be talking with you guys again, Rob and Rich. How are you doing, Rob?
Very well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for having us on again, allowing us the chance to speak to another human being, since it's I rarely cross the paths of living creatures these days, living so remotely on the Outer Isles. So, yeah, nice to see you both.
Great, yeah. And you, Rich, how you doing?
Do I need to contact my legal team before I say anything?
Yes, I did that on your behalf already.
Oh, thank you. And I'd just like to ask, where's the Cardinal? You told me the Cardinal will be joining us, and I feel cheated. You know, is he having his nails done or something? Stop laughing, Dan.
The Cardinal. That's an in-joke that we won't go into, unless you particularly want to, Rich. But there's endless amounts of things that we could be talking about here. If you guys want, we can talk music, but I have a feeling that you'd rather be talking about some of the more pressing and serious and cerebral matters that are occurring in the world right now. It's been a lot has happened since the last Wolfshead Roundtable, and although I personally try not to tune into the news as much as I possibly can, at the same time I do like to stay broadly abreast of what's happening, specifically because I like to know how to position myself and how best to kind of protect my family and my friends and everything that I care about from what seems to be coming down the pike. So have either of you got any suggestions as to what you'd like to kick off with here?
Well, did anybody see the kind of like the COVID playbook with the meningitis outbreak in Kent? And so they were trying to roll out and put the frighteners on everybody. Yeah, meningitis, deadly, and it almost, I don't know. I'd seen something, what was it, Operation Pegasus, they're calling it? No one asked you.
Is that the Cardinal?
Is that the Cardinal? No, that's the Cardinal's girlfriend. So,
okay.
It's like you say, same old playbook again, isn't it?
She heard you.
Desperately trying to shoehorn the same stuff in again.
Yeah, absolutely. I must apologise for this. Spontaneous outbursts. Again, it's the Phantom Press packet.
Oh yeah,
which you can hear rustling in the distance.
Rich, if you're at points where you're not talking, you can hit your mute button. There should be a little blue button in the corner of your screen, and then just flick it on again when you want to speak. If the Cardinal's girlfriend is making a noise, that is.
Yeah, well, I mean, one second. I'll be with you in a second.
But yes, the meningitis thing. I mean, my thoughts on that are that's so obviously absurd and far too on the nose for most people to accept. So I personally, my suspicion is that we won't hear too much more from that, but I could be wrong.
Well, there's the revelation that most of the diagnoses were incorrect anyway. Of course they were, but it's just that idea about we need to keep the old fear level up because we've got it up to a certain pitch already. So everything needs to be threatening, everything needs to be awful, and needs to be the end of the world because we all need to be generating the same demonic frequencies to allow all of this stuff to take place. So we've seen several attempts at this over the last couple of years. Actually, it's almost like a warm, comforting old slipper that they can just pop on from time to time and try it on and say, well, let's give this one a go. You know, it's been various spin-offs of unpronounceable or ridiculous sounding new diseases coming down the pike. But of course, you know, things like meningitis or whatever, you know, the latest Ubuntu plague are more indigenous to the third world than they are here. So it does kind of beg the question as to why are we seeing these medieval style diseases coming back in such alarming numbers or pseudo alarming numbers.
I think pseudo alarming numbers. This kind of, for me, there's a lot of intersectionality with this, and the attempt again to get to kids and jab kids up with new interesting chemical concoctions, which they've concocted curiously in a Chinese lab or somewhere else over at Pfizer.
Yeah. And which have unique properties for reproduction, of course.
Yes, this is a thing. I think we talked about this possibly as well last weekend, Dan, with the vaccines, that it's actually just a shortcut to sterilisation. And specific demographics, again, are going to be targeted. First, sterilisation. So who did the first lot of vaccines get? Well, there you go. We'd have to look into the actual science figures of that. But again, I suspect, again, it's all linked into Fabian Marxism, and certain people are being targeted, or certain groups,
certain demographics. There is kind of like the pictures that they were sharing were all of these sort of glaciate, vacant-looking students who were lining up and getting themselves ready for that. It's like, well, you know, they've already kind of taken the option that they're probably not going to be having kids or any kind of aspiration anyway. So, yeah, you might as well neuter them and send them into a blank future.
They're taking that option. I'm not having kids, as we were saying earlier, because you know that thing from the 60s. Oh, I don't want to bring children into
this awful, brutal world,
horrible world, because it's kind of part of an ideology that's been pushed in universities, in coming down from the higher echelons of education. This I don't know. I just find it very, very strange, very, very anti-human.
And you see no reluctance in other groups of people who come over and start squirting out 9, 15 babies, and having them all on some kind of welfare program by the end of the year. You know, it's we seem to have this sort of reluctance to be able to have children ourselves within our society, which other people just simply don't have. They get on with life, you know, because in a sense maybe they're more fatalistic than we are, ethnically speaking. In the sense that it's like what will be, just crack on with it, and we'll see how far we get.
Well, I kind of think that goes into. I mean, Dan might have some notion on this as well. It's kind of like the destruction and the idea of a family unit, and that's just another way to attack us. You know, if you don't have kids, you don't have a family. Traditionally, we've all grown up in families, or we've had families, and again. Yeah,
well, I think that's primary. Sorry, go on, Dan.
Well, I think you can kind of tie in a couple of interesting points that you both made together there, because Rob, you mentioned a minute ago about them trying to sustain this kind of very negative frequency, this kind of frequency of fear, by just throwing everything and anything at us to just keep us in this state of confusion and chaos and fear and uncertainty. And people might say, well, but how does that actually defeat us in any way on like a physical level? Well, I think we've got the answer right there, because
stops you from breeding.
Yeah, when you feel that way, then you don't breed. It's as simple as that. And you know, the immigrants who come in and they're still having lots of children, it's because they've not been as beaten down as the Englishman, the Brit, the European has been.
They still maintain a community spirit as well, so they're able to basically go about their business, their daily business, in mind, with the clear knowledge that they're looking after one another. You know, you've still got that kind of like community connectedness, which we have had forcibly extracted.
And it's a sense of self-confidence as well. It's that kind of belief that, well, it doesn't really matter what happens in the world, we will, you know, prevail, because we're masculine, confident, tribal, etc. You know, and a lot of them have faced hardships in the countries that they originate in and things like that. So they've got this much more kind of self-assured sense of being than the European man has, who hasn't really faced a lot of those hardships, but at the same time has also been subliminally told that we're worthless and that we're the scourge of the world.
Yeah, that's the long-term project, isn't it? That's the old Frankfurt School stuff, and everything really coming to a pinnacle now in this particular age. And I would say, really, since the whole COVID thing, in that everything is starting to constellate now. And the plan was to be able to get rid of any ideas of indigenous identity and the cultural links and aspirations that we have, and to be able to destroy us, like you say, quite rightly, Rich, through the family unit and all the rest of that, to break us down, to be able to come into our communities, segregate and break those up, and stop us from having, as I say, the great threat. To me, you can almost like cut it into what would be called nationalism and internationalism. It's almost like that.
Yeah.
Rich?
There's other parts to it as well that I've been noticing. And, I think for me and you, Rob, growing up in punk scene, just excuse me a second. Oi, come out. Here. We obviously have an understanding of women's reproductive rights. And I'm not going to make myself any friends with this. Absolutely not. And I'm probably going to get cancelled for the fourth, fifth time. But there's a certain aspect which, I fucking hate these people. I really, really do. And I'm talking about the Labour Party and the Marxists. This whole thing again, this whole anti-human thing, when they've changed the legislation so you can abort a baby literally a day before birth.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm going to say it outright. I think that's fucking sick. I just say that makes them baby killers. Baby killers. Think about that. What's happening? That's just absolutely morally wrong. Yeah. And I don't care if people call me a retard or what's the word that they would use? Anyway, so
the thing.
The thing, yeah, the curmudgeon. So, but I just find it wrong, and again, it's another avenue of attack on us as a people.
Well, there is this kind of like prevalent attitude within young women these days that they simply use abortion as birth control. So it's like in the old days it used to be the pill, and these days if you make a mistake, you'll just get rid of it. And there's a sort of joy in that for some of them too, which is absolutely obscene. I've been surrounded by that whole kind of like abortion network really throughout my younger life and stuff. And then you think that it's okay or that it's permissible whilst you're young and you're free and you're doing your things and not wanting to get tied down. And with age, you start to see that it's a deeply cynical and deeply demonic practice, and particularly when you go into the field of organ harvesting and all the rest of it. And there seem to be some most definite links between abortion and that, as people that are well placed being able to buy organs from children, after they've been aborted or whatever. God knows.
I've not come across that, Rob, to be honest.
You've not? No.
No. Again, I'm just looking at it from I'm probably only scratching the surface. I just found it very, very disturbing because at the other end of the spectrum, the huge push to legalise euthanasia.
Yeah.
Again, that experiment that's already failed in Canada, where people are being offered end of life treatment,
assisted dying. Yeah,
assisted dying. Just I'm depressed. Okay, let's lethally inject you. That makes sense.
Yeah, you've seen the adverts for it as well. Ironically enough, it's all white people on a beach. You want to kill yourself? Go on.
Yeah.
Kill yourself. Yeah, plenty more. Once you're gone, everything's going to be better. It's going to be more manageable anyway.
I had an interesting conversation with one of my tutors at college, and we were talking about this. And he's a long-term counsellor and peer mentor, as well as being a tutor. And even he found it a step too far, should I say. This is a counselling professional who found this assisted dying bill a step too far. And again, it's like at one end of the scale, you're looking at an adult. Let's get rid of that adult. Or at the other end of the scale, let's get rid of that child. And again, specific demographics being targeted. And
do both of you think this is a kind of rage bait thing? Because it seems like every day, if you plug into the network, there are so many things that can outrage us and get us really riled up about the world. It's like, again, it's bring us into that sort of state of conflict, and like an internal conflict, and also an acute awareness that we have a degree of impotence which is unmatched at any other time in history, because we're not allowed to react in any way whatsoever. Every way that we do try to do so is absolutely micromanaged now, right down to the state whereby it's almost as though predictive programming can pick you out and identify that you're probably having some subversive thoughts through viewing certain material. I mean, for me, that's probably, it's a stretch, but it's not a stretch too far right now.
Yeah, I would say, because I was going to say, you said that, you know, certain women use abortion as a form of birth control. And I've no doubt that that does happen, but I do think it's a rarity that a woman would be that callous about abortion. So for me, the significant thing about it is not that women are actually doing it as such, although I do think that that is clearly horrific, but it's more the fact that it's been sanctified, that they could do it if they wanted to. And I think that that plays into what you're just saying there about this being a rage bait thing. There's just this climate of, we are going to essentially it's the whole anarcho-tyranny thing. We are essentially going to legalize the most demonic, disgusting, depraved things, whilst at the same time we're going to criminalize more and more any sort of dissident behavior or any stepping out of line. It's that learned helplessness, that kind of, I think that's the bigger part of it, because, you know, we've probably all read about the fact that one of the main tactics of subduing your enemy in war is to humiliate them. And to me, it's just another humiliation tactic. It's we're so powerful, we have so much control over you that we can bald-faced implement a law which says you can slaughter human beings up until the day they die, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Sorry,
that's absolutely well said, Dan. It's a demoralization tactic, and you couple that with everything else that's happening, where if we bring it down to a very simplistic thing, the old two-tier justice and two-tier Kia and all the jives, and everybody's realised now that we're under attack, absolutely under attack. There's no two ways to put it.
But coming back to that again, it's like this thing about we have even when we're in discussions like this, it's this sort of awareness that there's a kind of self-censorship that we all indulge in now as well. You know, we don't feel free to discuss things anymore. And Rich and I were having a conversation before we actually came on board here, and I was saying like these ideas about what the way that stuff is projected toward us. So it's like you quite rightly say, it's about impotence and also about humiliation and about demoralization, when this whole thing is like a cycle of repetition going through that again and again and again. We're kind of stuck in that. And there's a part of me that I'm looking for a way to get through it, but the problem is that all the avenues of expression are covered. We know, you know, if you say certain words and things like that, you're no longer going to be on this certain platform, and so we have this kind of like obscene self-censorship thing now. Talking with Rich earlier on, we were talking about the great R word, which is always used against people, racism, and it's like, and I'm so over that, as they say in America, and it's almost like I want to be able to invert that, and quite clearly state that, you know, the actual accusation of racism is in itself, it's a weapon which is used against one very specific ethnic group or color group, which is white European people, and you don't get the accusation working in any reverse way whatsoever, and it is designed again to demoralize and to also self-censor us. So we are hyper aware of everything that we say or everything that we think. So I would like, you know, I'd like to be able to say that I think racism or racialism as an expression is actually a very healthy expression for any cultural and ethnic group that wants to be able to protect its own unique identity. That discrimination, which has always been used traditionally as a derogatory term, is actually a positive thing. And these are positive in the sense that at a base level, so where we're talking about people that we come across in our lives that don't appear to share the same values as we do, or don't appear to have the same sort of courtesies and customs, and we regard them, generally speaking, as being different to us. So it's not to say that this is a negative thing. We all do it, and I think it's time that we recognise that everybody, in essence, is what they call racist. Without it being necessarily a negative trait. It's a very natural thing to not trust the other because the other could be a threat. And it might be that it's some kind of like atavistic echo which goes back into our past, which we should have got over by now for some reason. But I also think that it's very important for us to recognize that these intrinsic defensive mechanisms that we have, we shouldn't just dispense with them or dispose of them just because somebody says they're bad. You need to be able to examine them and say, well, what is it? What is it that this thing is trying to tell us? And it's trying to tell us that there are differences between people. And the argument that I've had with other people before is like this whole thing about diversity is our strength and things like that. I maintain that the earth in its natural state is diversity, because everything, every person, every creature, every element of the natural world has its own place, has its own system that it thrives within optimally. So you can't judge one over another and say this is better than that and all the rest of it. You say optimally this works here and that doesn't work there. So it's a judgment. This as I say, the whole notion of diversity is our strength is preposterous, because diversity is already here. It's already there in nature. We don't need to homogenize and squeeze everything into the same package so everything looks the same. I want Japan to be Japan, I want China to be China.
Can I just point out there,
Russia.
Rob, quickly before, because I know Rich wants to jump in. I believe, and have done for many years, is that when they say diversity is our strength, they literally mean our, as in our little controlling group. They don't mean the nation. When Sadiq Khan or whatever gets up on a podium and says diversity is our strength, or Rishi Sunak or whoever else has said it over the years, everyone assumes that they're talking about, that they're speaking for the nation. When they say diversity is our strength, they mean our as in the whole nation. I think that they have always specifically meant themselves, but we're misunderstanding them. We're misinterpreting what they mean, because diversity is their strength. The diversity of a nation gives them more power because of the chaos that diversity within a nation foments.
I agree.
Yeah, really, really good point. But where were I? I was going to actually say something. I have to apologise because Queen Gertrude of Saxony is quite a handful, and she keeps interrupting. She's just been shut out at the minute.
That's why it makes it a real Wolfshead Roundtable, doesn't it? We've got an actual wolf.
Well, we've got one that's borderline. Yeah, absolutely. She's certainly got the attitude of one, I'm sure.
Well, she was born in Wolfland, so she must be a wolf.
Pardon?
She was born in Wolfland, so she must be a wolf, right?
She's actually imported from the USA.
Oh, yeah, okay.
She's an import. Cheap and tacky. So I've lost my train of thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, like you, Rob, and I'm sure like you, Rich, as well. I mean, I've always, I'm a genuine multiculturalist in the sense that I do love the diversity that the world presents.
Agreed.
I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, not one of us would say that that we're like supreme in some way, or that other groups, traditions, cultures, ethnic groups don't deserve the same rights to survive and thrive as so-called white people do. I don't even really like using that term. The problem is that when you apply that same logic to European people, to English and British people, then that's unacceptable, which is just ridiculous. And anyone with any intellectual honesty would see the double standards in that. But I suppose their response would be, well, we're all, we need to pay because of our colonialism and whatever.
Well, let me just stop you there, because this is something else I was just about to address. It's all reparations and fucking colonialism bullshit. If it was up to me, I wouldn't give them fucking steam off me shit. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to say why. If I walk down the street and I tread in some dog shit, I don't suddenly attack every dog owner I see and demand money to clean my shoes, do I? Because for a start, you're talking about something that happened hundreds of years ago. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I'm to be held responsible for slavery. And surely, if I remember correctly from reading up on history, it was actual tribal leaders that sold these people into slavery anyway. Mm-hmm. And then you're holding me several hundred years, or me, or my countrymen, or my country, responsible for it. Mm. Hang on a second, that isn't that a bit fucking weird? You know?
I saw some statistics earlier on today, which put across the idea that something like 36 times the amount of white people have been taken as slaves into the African subcontinent over the years. So we're not really talking about that, are we? We're talking about rage bait again. It's this thing about how dare people do this, and where's the money coming from? Well, it's probably coming from your taxes. Well, who's it going to? God knows. But I would imagine that the whole premise of this is the general sort of the Marxist view that it's the redistribution of wealth. So it's this idea about you've got to take money off people that have money and give money, free money, to people that don't have so much money, and that in return they don't have to do anything at all. So it's just basically balancing the scales and also creating a kind of resentment as well. So you can fuel the resentment that way.
Yeah, I feel resentment because, again, I mean, I look at it in a very primitive knee-jerk reaction sort of way. I didn't do that, so I'm not going to feel any fucking guilt from it. I couldn't give a fuck. Absolutely couldn't give a fuck for anybody.
But it's out of our hands, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah, it's several hundred years ago. I didn't do it. You're not holding me to account from it. I'm not taking a knee for your BLM protests. I couldn't give a fuck about them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I try and treat people with unconditional positive regard all the way through, no matter who they are, what they are, upon initial meetings. But I am certainly not going to be guilt-tripped and gaslit by a bunch of fucking Marxist wankers.
But the grift is always the same, isn't it? It's like people get offered free money, and that's in exchange
UBI.
In exchange for their vote. Yeah,
yeah. This is sort of like taking us down the road to UBI. And I'm sure for some people that'll be great. They'll be great because they don't want to do anything with their lives. Or they want to. They're so happy to sit and sing songs about whatever, or as long as they're getting the UBI. Even at my age, I've still got aspirations and I want to achieve.
And your aspiration should be rewarded in one respect or another, shouldn't it? Really, a person should be able to create their own wealth or their own worth. It doesn't mean you have to be wealthy, but your worthiness is indicative of some kind of reward, if you like, because we tend to work off that. We take pride in work, in labour, and if it's done in the correct manner and in a positive spirit, we know that there should be a recompense for that. I think that the other side of this whole equation with the compensation thing is that if people receive anything that they don't earn, it's not really it doesn't really do anything at all, does it? It just says that there's no value intrinsically to anything at all, and one thing is the same as another thing, and we're being increasingly pushed toward that outlook as it is. So we're saying you can't differentiate between up and down, or left or right, or man or woman, or right or wrong, where it comes to that, and it all funnels inevitably into the same thing, which Dan was pointing out the other day when we had the preamble to this chat here, which is that the current predicament that we see ourselves in with the Middle East and stuff like that all seems to be inevitably feeding into this whirlpool, which is drawing us down into this whole thing. It's part of the whole package, which is, like, as you quite rightly point out, Rich, it's like UBI, and it's this idea about reducing society down to a very manageable set of units, and they're just monetary units or units of labour. But even we know these days that labour is going to become something which will be replaced anyway, apart from the most important jobs, the structural jobs, your plumbers, electricians, things like that. People that actually have to do something and have some kind of skills.
Well, that spells doom for the useless eaters, does it not?
Can I just jump in there? I just want to comment on a couple of things there. I don't want to go too far down the line before I forget. But this whole idea of white privilege is absurd. As I've done a lot of genealogy research, and as far as I can tell, I don't have a single ancestor who benefited from plundering during the times of the British Empire or anything like that. And if you're a father, which both of you are, you know that the fruits of your labor, you want those to go to your children, right? And that's normal and natural for anyone in the world. So all that white privilege is the idea that people from a European nation should have the right to hand what they create, the wealth that they created, down to other people of that nation. And so I say that there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But Rich made a really interesting point there, which I hadn't considered, which is that all of this current rage bait about reparations, which does crop up every couple of years. I mean, I've seen that crop up many times over the years, but it seems to be on the cards again now. And that could well be part of the UBI thing, because it could be another way of saying, well, yeah, we can give you reparations. It will be in the form of this digital currency. And, it's another way of leading people into that. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. You wonder whether the spirit of things at the moment, we seem to be inevitably being forced into this financial collapse, which I've been wondering where the hell it's been. It's going to have to happen. And the replacement of the current financial model with the next one, which is, however that turns out to be, some kind of digital thing, there is an inevitability to that. And all of these things tend to funnel into that, is my point with this whole thing about the stuff that's going on in the Middle East at the moment. And you were pointing out, Dan, about the oil crisis and these manufactured things that are going on, how they all point toward the Agenda 2030 thing. And of course they do. I'm cynical about the whole Straits of Hormuz thing, because I don't know whether you would be able to manufacture that crisis to such an exacting degree unless you had people in the background in the Persian countries that were complicit in that too. I think that requires these things. It's almost as though there's speculative opportunities which all can be used. So, like, as I say, every crisis is an opportunity to somebody else. So these things can be used if viewed correctly. It's like they're trying to trim their sails each time a crisis comes up to find out how to best fit that into this whole 2030 thing, which is the objective itself. How we can use that in what manner to be able to fulfill which of these 15 promises or whatever it is. So we're doing this thing with the reparations, as I say, redistribution of wealth, which is one of the primary objectives of it anyway. And like Rich says, with the whole UBI stuff too. So it's as though we're in the middle of an arena, looking around at these challenges that are coming in from absolutely every direction, and they're just getting more and more and more busy. So we're batting this shit off day after day after day. And it appears, coming back to our earlier thing, that there's very little we can do about it because of self-censorship and the increasing sort of pressure that there is on us not to have an opinion, or at least not to have that opinion taken seriously.
The problem we have is, again, and this is something else that we talked about, the entire metal and punk scenes being co-opted. And from when we were youngsters to what you've got now, which is basically Fabian Marxism, and the transhumanists have just taken everything over. They don't stand for anything. If anything, they only stand for a good Instagram photo and some LARPing and pretending to be, do you know what, I'm going to dress like Kronos from Venom or something like that. That's all it's about now. It's a photo opportunity. It's about the optics. So any form of all rebellion's gone. So how do we battle everything? You know, again, look where we were 6 years ago and look how many people have woken up now. But not people from traditional, let's say, the metal and punk backgrounds. It's everyday people who are waking up and saying something's not quite right here. There's not enough sunlight. Why is everything flooding? And you give me any sort of like natural disaster, and I'll just fucking debunk it. This whole climate fucking crisis or anything like that, rivers flooding, that's because the irrigation and drainage has just been deliberately mismanaged across the entirety of Europe to create all this bullshit. The chemtrails, things like that, where they're spraying aluminium compounds into clouds. So we're not getting enough sunlight. Crops are failing. And didn't we speak a few weeks ago, Dan, about how farmers in your area were saying that it's going to be a really, really poor crop? So
yeah, it wasn't specifically in my area, but the farmers all over the country have been saying that, and I think they were saying it last year as well. Yeah,
but that dovetails into what Rob was saying. We're funneling down into everything. We're going into digital ID. We're going into universal basic income, and we're going into some chemical slop for food. It's just gradually getting there. But many people are awake, and the voices are getting louder. This is the thing. And I know that people sense hopelessness. I'm kind of, I always admit at times to being belligerent and to being a big mouth and that, but, you know, I have no choice. That's my upbringing. If I see something's wrong, I'm going to speak about it. I'm not going to act like a slack-jawed, mealy-mouthed fucking liberal who's come straight off a art and drama master's degree Fulchester University or wherever, you know. I'm going to call it how it is. I'll call a spade a spade. If I think it's shit, I'm going to say, this is shit, this is bullshit. And it's not just me. I don't care. I'm well past the point of worrying about who I'm going to make an enemy of, you know. I'm thinking about my children's future, not how I might look at it in a specific scene. But again, co-option, that's the thing. That's how they've done it, you know.
So do you think that there's I agree with you. I think a lot more people have woken up over the past few years, and a lot of those people were quite a surprise to me. For people, you wouldn't really expect that, you know, because we do tend to make, we can make judgments about people which may not be exactly who they are, or they just they'll come out of the woodwork when this kind of stuff comes up. But there's a silent minority who have withdrawn, I think, over the past 10, 15 years, perhaps. And we see that reflected in things like the political spectrum, where you have only 48% of people actually voting or being bothered to vote anymore, because they don't find any kind of commonality or any sort of interest for themselves in politics. There's nobody that represents them. So, I don't know how you feel about that at the moment, Dan, but you maintain, and I think you're quite right, that the solution is not political. But we do, I do see people like, for instance, like Rupert Lowe at the moment coming up and voicing some of the primary concerns that people have at the moment, and also, in a sense, almost being like an outsider with that, and what he seems to be doing is he's kind of unearthing this demographic of the silent people. I think he's taking a lot of support from the area which hasn't even been acknowledged by the main parties themselves. So that's quite an interesting thing to me. The commonality again is that a lot of the people who are talking common sense are people that are what we would call woken up, or they have awakened over the last few years. How do you feel about that, Dan?
Yeah, well, this is a big topic that I wanted to talk about today, actually, because that it's very difficult not to toot your own horn at the moment. Yeah, and I'm sure both of you feel very much the same way these days, because I mean the number of times that we could legitimately say "told you so." I mean, we'd be saying it for the rest of today, because literally everything that we warned people of 6 years and longer ago has happened. I mean, I can't really think of a single thing. I think the only prediction that I got wrong was that I did think that we would be back in lockdowns by now, because there were certain UN-related papers and proposals which did suggest that. But other than that, I mean, I was never on the Trump train, for example. I always saw through Donald Trump since the very, very first moment. There's the ear-piercing ritual which happened, which was the assassination, and people mock me for this, right? But there's for those of you who don't know, there is an ancient Jewish ritual called the Eved Ivri ear-piercing ritual, and when a slave wants to pledge themselves to continued servitude, they allow themselves to be pierced in the right ear. Okay, now, is it really a coincidence that Donald Trump was scuffed by a bullet on his right earlobe, and then ever since that moment he could not have been more slavish to Israel's wishes and demands if he tried. All the COVID stuff we were right about, the chemtrailing stuff, that's now officially announced and admitted geoengineering.
Yeah.
And that's something that, 15, 20 years ago, I was being laughed at for. But now you'll see BBC articles about that. Every single thing that we were mocked for being conspiracy theorists. And the worst thing is that there'll still be probably people listening to this, who will still call us conspiracy theorists, even though everything that we've said has now been completely validated.
You've got that wrong. They'll call us right-wing conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Use a full title, please. I demand it, because we're right-wing conspiracy theorists.
But yeah, where I wanted to go with that line of thought was that I strongly suspect, and that this is speculative, but I feel it in my gut, that they are deliberately, and they have been deliberately creating a situation where nothing of the system can be trusted, when nobody trusts the system. You look at the Epstein revelations. I don't think that they had to reveal that. I think if they wanted to keep that under covers, they control every single media channel and avenue. I'm not saying that it's not true what's in there. I'm just saying that I think that they have probably deliberately thrown a whole class of people under the bus. Then you look at what Trump's doing in Iran, which is quite clearly abominable to most people with any kind of sense of morality or decency. What he's doing is ridiculous. The whole COVID thing, the mismanagement of that so-called pandemic, everything to me seems to be about creating this absolute distrust of the system. And of course it's right that a large number of people are turning away from the system and refusing to vote and whatever, but I just have to wonder why that is. And my suspicion is that it's because they need to destroy the old system before they can bring in the new one.
Yeah, I absolutely see your point there. On a broad perspective, that makes sense. There was something I was thinking about while you were talking there, but yeah, it's like the overarching theory of the one world government stuff, that you need to destroy all confidence in
the old world order
and the old manner of doing things, and to pull that to pieces. I don't know about the Epstein thing, but I think that I think the management of information as well. I think you're quite right in that stuff is eked out, but also there's this sense that that we are being taught to overcome our revulsion and our outrage increasingly through subsequent actions and revelations. So it's like everything that comes up, it's just like take it. Move on, take it. It's like you're being drawn into a dark demonic fucking realm, and you're having to acclimatize very quickly to it.
Yeah.
It's
simultaneously with this knowledge that there's not a lot you can do about it. So yeah, we're coming back to this whole sad thing about about demoralization, but personal impotence. So the reaction to that is what is it?
There's a lot of desensitization going on there, Rob.
Yeah,
this is people are desensitizing people to atrocities, and again, it's a very, very dark place to be in. If people are suddenly not morally outraged by a sister dying or termination of children a day before birth, then there's something fucking wrong. They're trying to make it seem and appear normal. So, yeah, it's always been like that. It should always. That's your right. It's your right to kill children. It's your right to kill members of your family.
If we were to see that as a compass, and you'd say, look how far we've come in this past 10 or 20 years. Look how far we've come since 9/11, really, with the idea about spectacle and atrocities. Plenty of stuff before that, but that was almost like a marker post for the beginning of the technocratic sort of surveillance society that was subsequently pushed onto us, and which we've become more and more and more acclimatized to the extent that we don't even see it anymore. So that it's completely normal for us to see people holding a box in their right hand and staring at that as they walk down the street. That's the way it is. We don't seem to have an appreciation of perspective and the predicament that we're in, where that's concerned. About this whole thing, outrage. It's like we one thing upon another thing upon another thing until you suddenly find yourself immersed in a soup of so many obscene ingredients. I'm trying to figure out. That's a weird thing to say. Soup of obscene ingredients. That's a song title. I think.
It is actually. I've actually remind me, get a pen and paper. I'll write it down. That's a new sore throat song. Is that soup of obscene ingredients?
It's we've got to remember the old classic alchemical Freemasonic phrase, ordo ab chaos, order from chaos. I think that they can't bring in the new order, which puts them at the very pinnacle of everything, until they have created absolute chaos everywhere else, so that we don't know which way to turn. And I'm a very speculative person. I think some people assume that everything that I say I must certainly believe, but it's more about putting out ideas, just considering all possibilities, really. And when I say that perhaps they're trying to create widespread distrust in the old system so that we accept the new, and when I say that maybe they eked out the Epstein files, I'm not saying that I know that that's what they've done for certain. I'm just suggesting that could be what's happened, and wondering, well, how would that benefit them, and then maybe coming up with some ideas. It's with the
it's a distraction, Dan. It's a distraction. It's nothing more. It's the case of a limited hangout. It's a distraction. The whole Epstein thing were a distraction, and the current conflict in Iran is a distraction. It is going where we think it's going.
I think it serves different purposes for different people, right? Because depending on your psychology, you'll either be distracted by that from something else, or you'll be enraged by it, or you'll be confused by it, or you will be desensitized by it. It's almost like every individual is more kind of predisposed to being led in one direction or another with it, and in that way they can almost kind of segment the population out into different camps. Those who are confused by it, those who are distracted by it, those who are enraged by it, etc. And then perhaps it's more easy to deal with each of those camps when they've separated us.
They've got a job to do. There's a lot of psychology involved in it. Look at the idiots who are going out, I don't know, what do they call them now? Stand up to racism. They're basically fucking Labour Party activists. And they've got no war in Iran, and everybody who's coming out on the side of Iran. And then again, the psychology is being used on them, because they'll go leap from one crisis to the next crisis or the next cause. And I sent you that definition of narcissism. And these people are classed as communal narcissists because they're always virtue signaling. They've got to be there. They've got to be seen to be doing the right thing, which is, I mean, going off on a tangent there, who would have thought that Israel would be the arch enemy 18 months ago, that Israel is the bad guy this year? And before it was, I don't know, it was Russia. Russia was the bad guy. China's the bad guy. You've always got a new enemy.
Yeah, this I definitely wanted to talk about this, and I'm interested in Rob's thoughts on this one. There does it almost seems like, dare I say it, anti-Semitism is acceptable this year. Who would have ever predicted that? And what the hell is
I'm
going
very
on
disappointed.
there?
I'm very disappointed. I took a stand as a primary anti-Semite and Holocaust denier, and I feel I'm being crushed out of this position now. It's like by all these left-wing pseuds. So yes, I mean,
funny how they're not being cancelled for it, isn't it?
Isn't that funny? Yeah, I mean, it's almost as though you make a stand pretty much on your own. You lose all your friends and everything else, and that's fine. But until other people come to the same conclusions, I'm just waiting for them to actually look into some of the things I was interested in and that I was intimating as well at that time, and finding out about that for themselves. Because I think that you need to have an historical perspective, particularly around the events or alleged events around the Second World War. And once you've got that perspective, you can figure out from there who benefits and how do they benefit and how this grift goes on. And I think that a lot of people that were not receptive, should we put it, to some of these ideas back in 2000, whatever it was, that my jury trial commenced, are probably a lot more amenable to it now. And it's like, welcome to the fucking club, you lot. I wouldn't encourage people to be hateful toward another group of people. What I would seriously encourage an examination of history itself, and also the way that things have played out. How dominance has come about. We're almost in the middle of something which you can't ignore anymore.
Perhaps that kind of encouraging and psychological manipulation. Again, this kind of dovetails into the current immigration crisis, where everybody's encouraged to hate Muslims, and perhaps there's something going on there psychologically. Well, this month's enemy for you is going to be the Muslim, and the Muslims are attacking the Jews, and the Jews used to be, and for everybody on the left, the Jews are now the enemy. But then again, Jeremy Corbyn and the hardline length, they've always been Jew haters, let's put it that way. They've always been anti-Semitic. Absolutely.
It's a funny thing now. We're coming to a point where things are beginning to blend together. And as I say before, we're starting to find commonality from right and left with some of these ideas, where they're starting to entangle with one another. But we would probably look at it from what they would say would be a right-wing perspective, which we all don't really agree with that as being a way of explaining it. But I would say that we're in a bit of a pickle here, because we've invited elements into our country and into our society that don't really thrive in the way that they should here. They should be somewhere else. We don't, this my perspective. We don't need people here representing these ideologies. Get rid of them. That's it. But the left haven't really come to that conclusion yet. So I think that what's going to have to happen is through personal and intimate discovery, such as happened the other day in Brighton. And Brighton is the central leftist hellhole of Globo Homo, as we all know. And some woman there was walking home peacefully at night and was raped by 6 migrant gentlemen who put it onto their iPhone as well, and they made a little video out of it. And it's like, that's right in your face there. So you think about the consequences of that within that sort of cozy, as I say, the sort of Globo Homo lefty leaning kind of society there, that person and their immediate family and friends are going to be traumatized and affected by that, and that's going to have a ripple effect that goes out. And I think that what has been going on is that there's been a kind of like cushion between the people that propose these open borders ideas and the actual experience of that cultural enrichment itself on a day-to-day level. They've traditionally been put into working class areas who've been increasingly set aside by the left wing and particularly the Labour Party in favour of the middle classes and their sort of affluent ideas.
Well, we're going into this is the this is like one of my personal subjects that just makes me so fucking angry. And again, it's the rape gangs and the things, and I've seen it happening in Bradford when I used to live in Bradford, and I lived above one of these fucking taxi drivers who were abusing young white girls, and I mentioned it to the local anarchos, and I was told to be quiet. And then, as all these revelations that have come out about Rotherham and places like that, and the Labour even silencing its own candidates and kicking them out of the party, and the reports, and everybody's known for decades that it's been going on, but if you mention it, you're a racist. Okay, if I mention it and that makes me a racist, here's my hands held up, I'm a fucking racist. I'm just fucking beyond it. I cannot see how the left can now look themselves in the mirror in the morning and not admit that this has been going on. But that is, again, this is, I feel like it's a form of class warfare. But it's a warfare against the working class by the middle class.
But do you also think, Rich, that coming back to what we were talking about earlier on, this idea about how big swathes of society have been encouraged not to have children, not to engage with any stuff at all. It's just indulge yourself in your own perversions and your weird mental illnesses, and that's enough. So they don't have skin in the game, and that's why traditional sort of working class societies and stuff like that tend to have kids, groups, families, interactions between people and stuff, which perhaps these people, that's very, but these people don't have contact with so much. So what does it matter if a load of almost entirely white girls in their early teens are raped and molested and kept in cages?
The cannon fodder. The cannon fodder. The cannon fodder for some middle class person's political aspirations. That's all they are. They're disposable.
They're disposable.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah, the underclass. I think me and Dan had talked about this. Perhaps again, you'll have to jog my memory, Dan. It's just the way things have been for a long, long time, and no one wanted to talk about it. Now they do want to talk about it, but again, rage bait. It all fits into the rage bait. It's curious how it comes up just at the time of the multiple other. What's the plural of crisis? Crises, yeah. So the crises at the time. So what's the plural of Elvis?
LV,
and Elvi.
Elvas, yeah. But the response to it is like, well, so what? There's plenty of white people that do the rapes too. It's like, well, okay, but
this is true.
We're not guessed.
True, but no one's trying to cover these up.
Yeah, exactly. You find them in court.
They're owned, and they're made very, very public, and the perpetrators punished. No one's trying to cover it up. Yeah, but then we look at the percentage of the populations that are actually doing this, and I'm sure there's a higher percentage if you look at it in some form of graph, where it could be 20%. Let's just say, and I can't remember. Let's say it's 10% of the Pakistani population, and there I've said the demographic that is actually perpetrating these crimes. So, yeah, I'm a racist. I've mentioned Pakistani rape gangs. And then perhaps it might be 10% or whatever, 5%. But, when you stack it up, it just there's actually more in the Pakistani community.
It's what's called per capita, isn't it? So understanding of per capita is often the thing which is misunderstood by people. It's like, it's all very well.
I think the important thing with that is that It's about what was necessary and what was avoidable. You can't. Someone who is born and bred in England, whose ancestors have all come from England, and they turn out to be a complete wrong 'un, you can't deport them because that's their homeland, even though they are a wrong 'un. I mean, you could argue that there are other ways that they should be dealt with, but you can't. There's nowhere to send them because this is where they were, or that is where they were born. But someone who was allowed into the country, they didn't need to be allowed into the country. And my kind of whole, I'm at the point now where I'm sort of like, we know that the state absolutely despises us. So how do we? I think a lot of us are in that sort of phase where we're working out how to deal with that. And as we said earlier, humans are tribal. All of us are tribal, whether you want to admit that or not. All humans are tribal. The thing is that what happened hundreds of years ago is that we outsourced our tribalism to a central government, to a central state, so that they could create a tribe from the entire nation. They could set a border and they could say, okay, now this is the new singular tribe and we are going to look after you. And everyone initially went, okay, you seem like an honest lot. Fine, great. You can protect us from invasion. You can make sure that bad elements from within are rooted out, etc., etc. Now, with the realization that that central power not only doesn't protect us, but is actively working against us, we need to reconsider this whole idea of the singular state tribe. And these girls who walk the streets, these young white girls who walk the streets, and then they're taken in and groomed in inverted commas and whatever. That is a horrible, horrible crime that I would do anything that I could to not see that happen. However, I think we're at a point now where people need to realize that the state is not going to look after those girls. That not only is the state not going to look after them, but it's actually going to persecute them rather than their attackers, and it's going to hush it all up, and it's going to make it difficult for those girls to be protected. So I know that we're at a point now where we need to re-tribalize to the extent where those girls' fathers, but not just their fathers, their uncles, their brothers, the other men in their community start taking responsibility for looking after them. And if those girls are insisting on walking the streets in the evening, then there need to be men who are out there keeping an eye on them and making sure that they're safe. Because so many of the problems that we're facing now come from the fact that we assume that the state is still there to protect us. And we haven't yet accepted the fact that it's not.
Very good point, Dan. Very good point.
This is exactly what Chris Hargreaves from Sons of Satan MC's been doing with The Shield, trying to get guys to go out and protect women and girls and children against predators.
There's the same initiative in Glasgow as well, where they're doing these street patrols at night after 6 or whatever, and just making sure that the young girls, if they're tottering around drunk on a Friday night or whatever, that they get where they need to go and they're safe and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's really insightful, Dan. It's this taking things back. But do you remember that initiative that they had over in Scandinavia? And this was way back, probably in 2010 or so, where they had walking groups. And I thought about this as well, about you should have like a gentleman's walking club where you can go out and you should be able to walk around the bounds of your territory.
Absolutely.
Every evening with people of a like mind who also enjoy some recreational activities and a little bit of exercise, and look out for things. It's unfortunate that we have to take this into our own hands. Yeah,
and turn that into an enjoyable social thing, because that's not only are you then keeping an eye on, the vulnerable people of your community, but you're bonding with those other men, and you're making your presence known as well. And it's like with the homeschooling thing is a similar thing for me. I don't think that you've got a right to sit there as an Englishman or a Welshman, Scotsman, Irishman, whatever, and complain about the indoctrination of children if you are voluntarily sending them to school. One of the very few advantages that we have in Britain is the right to homeschool. Most countries don't have that right, but we do. And again, you need to take the education of your the control over the minds of your children into your own hands. And it's people who still have this kind of latent assumption that the state is or should be there to look after your children and the people that you care about, and that if they're not doing that, then they're incompetent, or they're making a mistake, or they just need to be kind of grabbed by the scruff of the neck and shown how to do it properly. We need to accept that they're not there. That's not their intention. That the schools are so infiltrated by Marxists and technocrats now that they've got no interest in raising your children to be safe and traditionally minded. It's quite the opposite. But the problem is that too many of us are still assuming that they have our best interests at heart.
They are emphatically the enemy, and they place themselves in that position. So quite right. And I like all of these sort of notions of self-reliance and also the rebuilding and restructuring of communities on a small level. And what you were saying earlier on, Dan, about the abstraction of the kind of the notions of tribe, and how that's gone out of an immediately local sort of outlook into one of nations and borders and all the rest of it. So it kind of loses its cohesion, and it loses its relevance as well on a local level. So there's almost that need to return to local, like not League of Gentlemen, but that need to be able to bring things back home and to be able to manage in smaller groups in the interest of these small units of society as we are.
You got to look at it as well. Let's cast our minds back, Rob, to about 1985. The gigs around the UK, when there were a smaller amount of us turning up at gigs where you'd have a big gig, but you felt like you were part of a tribe, you were part of something, and you'd look out for each other generally, apart from unless you were stealing someone's bottle of cider. But that's not, it's not an uncommon way to form bonds in smaller groups, and it should come natural to a lot of people, especially if you've grown up in a village, then you've grown up in a smaller community, or you've been part of what have been a smaller social scene. If you were part of the UK punk scene in the mid-80s, you knew you were different, and you looked upon everybody else with distrust. It's as simple as that. At least in my experience, I did.
Do you think that the fracturing of a lot of that trust happened during the COVID as well, though? That's the problem. It's like one of the instruments that was used to batter that into small pieces. So, for instance,
I do.
In our local environment,
distrust was encouraged amongst your community and your neighbours. Don't go. They're diseased. Don't go. They're the wrong sort of people. They're unjabbed. They're diseased. They're the wrong ones. So you've not to talk to them. Of course it is. Yeah. There's a lot of intersectionality again which has been used by behavioural science units and 77 Brigade and everybody else who's doing it in government. They use psychology against everybody to hate and to fall into that trap and like distrust everybody. It's mind-blowing when you start looking into it, and that's actually one of my main interests, is the psychology that's being used against us. So
you need to figure out ways of getting over that, and again using this word commonality, finding out the things that we share in common. It's early days where I live, but I can see the incursion of the program here already. There's been several faces appearing in the immediate community which don't belong here, and this is not me being nasty because of a person is of a certain ethnicity or anything like that. It's not that at all. It's just we know that it ain't going to work, and we need to keep an eye on that. It's almost like you need to preempt these things by being aware of them and working out how you're going to react when, but usually when the problems appear, because they seem to appear, and there seem to be no reciprocal punishment on for people that indulge themselves. But yeah, so finding commonality of interest, almost like putting aside some of the this petty issues that we do have with one another, and beginning to mend again, because I think we've been terribly damaged at that level, and it's an abusive kind of relationship that's gone on.
I'd seen some encouraging signs of that. Curiously enough, coming from the left of all things.
Oh, yeah.
For conversations I've had with people who've admitted that the damage that's been done to English white communities by the government in the name of diversity, and they're starting to recognise that these things are actually happening. Also, I saw some banners on some social media posts which kind of echoed my own thoughts, which was the government is, or the powers behind the government, are encouraging sectarian warfare, because that's another way to funnel us down into digital ID. And again, I think, certainly from my point of view, I'm not going to be distrustful of anybody who looks different to me. You know, I'm old enough now from my own sort of like training to think, okay, I'm going to show this person positive regard until they step over a certain line or cross a boundaries threshold that I've set for myself, the things I will tolerate. Then, yeah, that person's getting sent to Coventry or worse. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, just to go back to a very early part of the conversation where Rob was talking about almost should we own the word racist? Well, I mean, personally, I wouldn't do that, because they'll absolutely just say to you, well, you admit that you're a racist, because, you know.
So what?
Well, yeah, the problem is that does have ramifications, and I think, you know, you may sort of have got to a point, Rob, where you don't want anything from the kind of people who are gatekeeping. Personally, as a musician, I still need to kind of, I still try to be diplomatic. And the thing is that in the sense of hating people just because of their ethnic or racial background, I absolutely am not a racist. I am a tribalist, though. But what I wanted
that's
to
what
say,
they mean by racist, though, isn't it? That's what they mean. So it's messing around with semantics.
Yeah, no, you are right, but the R word does trigger people a lot more than the T word, even though they mean the same thing. But for me, what it's all really about, and I realized this quite recently, is all of this is about freedom of association. It's not necessarily that I want some kind of, ethno state. It's not that. It's nothing like that whatsoever. It's, for me, it's about, and always has been about, the individual being able to choose who they associate with, and in both ways, who they don't want to associate with and who they do want to associate with, and the whole kind of anti-racist, anti-fascist movement, the whole Marxist movement, that is telling you that you have to associate with these people whether you like it or not. Or, they're not allowing for freedom of association, or they're saying you're not allowed to associate with Rob Miller because he said this. They're trying to tell you who you're allowed to associate with, and who you have to associate with, and who you are not allowed to associate with. And
yeah, but again, Dan, this is the thing: is that this is. I see exactly what you mean, but you're aware in this conversation here of your need for self-censorship. It's already there. It's like you already live inside that sphere. I have I'm fortunate enough not to, because I chose to ride out that wave of contempt that everybody had, and say fuck you, fuck all of you lot, and that's a choice you face at that level, because the thing that you're involved with, that whole industry, is run by the people that are your enemies. The whole thing.
I know. Let me just give a brief anecdote to just kind of maybe explain why I'm a bit diplomatic about it. I had a gig quite recently, and the guy who booked the gig was a friend of mine, and he contacted me before, and he had discovered certain rumors about me, and he said, look, I'm really sorry, Dan, but I think that maybe you should step down from this gig. And he said, look, I am friends with people of all, backgrounds, worldviews, whatever. And I personally don't have a problem with that sort of freedom of association. However, it doesn't look good for the venue, for the community, for the other bands playing, etc. So for their sake, I'm going to ask you to step down. Now, I went back to him and I basically said, look, a lot of those rumors about me are untrue. They're exaggerated. They're misinterpreted. They're twisted, whatever. What I actually believe is this and this, and one of those things is that I don't hold any racial hatred. Absolutely not. I've never hated anyone because of their sexual or racial background or anything like that. I've never shown anyone any disrespect because of those things. I show them disrespect if they behave like a dick, but not purely because of their identity, so to speak. And because I engaged with him in a diplomatic manner, he agreed that I should stay on the bill and that I should continue to play the gig. Now, you might ask, well, why would you want to play for someone who has that sort of attitude? And the answer is because there are people who want to see me play who either agree broadly with my worldview or don't really have a problem with it, or just, don't even know anything about it and just enjoy my music. Yeah. And I think it's unfair that they should never be able to see me perform live because of the gatekeepers. So that's why I do choose to kind of engage with those gatekeepers to an extent. If they're able to be reasonable, then I do kind of play that sort of diplomatic game. But I mean, I absolutely admire and respect you for, not doing that, because I think you feel like you've that part of your life has run its course and you've got no interest in playing the game in a sense. But
but also I don't have a young family as well to look after too, so that I have to appreciate that from your perspective too, the fact that things do cost. There is a price to pay.
There's a big price to pay. Yeah,
there is. Yeah, and I absolutely respect that. It's just that I'm I just hate the apologetics of it. Because it's insincere, because we don't really, I find it humiliating, and it's part of the humiliation process. And what was demanded of me immediately is the usual thing. It's like it's the mea culpa. It's that you must apologize. And you know damn well that as soon as you do that, it's never going to be enough. Because what they do is they just start to feed on you. That's your corpse. You're done. As soon as you bend a knee toward these kind of people, and I'm not talking about this promoter that you're talking about, but I'm talking about broadly speaking. The whole way that it's set up is it's designed to destroy you as an individual. Absolutely 100%. Destroy you.
I'll admire you eternally for not apologizing. I watched that whole thing unfold, and I was actually nervous that you were going to come out and apologize. And when you didn't, I was like, yes, go, yeah. And similarly, I've never, Rich has never apologized for anything. When I came out on stage with Rich at Solstice in Germany year before last, the first thing I said was, we're Solstice from England and we've got nothing to apologize for. I will never apologize for anything because I've got nothing to apologize for. But what I will do at certain times for certain people, if I feel that they're reasonable enough to receive it, is I will clarify my position for them.
The hope is that there's like a convergence as well. And I think in the case that you're talking about, it's like there's reasonable people speaking reasonably with one another and having not even a debate in that case, but you're having a conversation about where your position is. This should have been the primary position, but instead of that, it's the exception really, because what we're left with these days is antagonistic shouting from behind barriers at one another, hurling insults. If there's one tiny minutiae of thought crime suspected in the individual, then that's it. You're done for. So. We've always been advocates for free speech and for open debate, and I think that's absolutely healthy and to be commended. And it would be nice if we see concessionary measures from the other side too. Rich talking about earlier on, there seemed to be, he's saying in his experience, people on the left-hand side of the conversation who seem to be coming across too. So we are going to have to look for that. We're going to have to look for a way that we can shake hands again and say, listen, we've all suffered in one way or another because of what's been done to us. And it wasn't done because we were bad people or anything like that. But it's been done to all of us, whether we like it or not, whether we've fallen for the ideology itself, which has placed us where we are today, or however that came about. You know, we need to be able to say, how are we going to make peace here?
Because we need to encourage dialogue, Rob. We need to encourage dialogue. And people, me and Dan have talked about this on multiple occasions. People are very proud. They're too proud to admit that they were wrong. And this is a terrible thing. And I'll just go back a couple of steps. And we were talking about the old racist thing, you know. And when before we were recording, me and you were talking, and I've always struggled to articulate what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. This is my experience. If you know anything about the science of phenomenology or its definition, then you know this is how I'm experiencing the world. These are my feelings, my emotions, what I'm seeing, how I interpret them. So if I say something's happening, that's what it doesn't mean to say that it's not happening. You know, if you were going to see a counsellor, for example, that counsellor would not gaslight you and try and tell you that it wasn't happening. That counsellor would listen. That counsellor would put themselves in your shoes and understand your perspectives. So if I'm saying something's happening, it's actually happening in my world. And you have to acknowledge that and accept that. That's part of giving unconditional positive regard to someone. So whether they like it or not, in my communities, these things are happening. The rape gangs are happening. Inverse racism happens. And you know, people, that's just the way they are. But dialogue. If we don't have dialogue, we can't address these things. And always people are going to be become an underclass and be downtrodden and be manipulated if we don't have dialogue. It sounds like a cliche, but you know, together we are strong.
And that's what what we're doing right now is all about. And you know, this promoter friend of mine, I said to him, look, let's go for a drink and we'll talk, and you can interrogate me as much as you like, you know, because he is a decent guy, and I do value him as, you know, albeit a relatively new friend, but I do think he's a decent guy, and I don't want him to misunderstand me. So yeah, that dialogue, it absolutely is important. And I think that it's going to be imperative, you know, as you both alluded to, that we do bridge these divides, because our enemy, who isn't the Marxists, because they're just misled, right? They are not, you know, the rank and file Marxists. They're not the enemy, really. I mean, they're acting on behalf of the enemy, but they're not the root of it. The enemy wants us to be as fractioned as possible, and that tells us that what the enemy fears is for us to not be fractioned, right? And I mean, I know that's quite an obvious point to make, but and this is why, in a sense, in a horribly sort of perverse way, I'm almost grateful for this Iran thing, because obviously it's horrific for the people who are involved in that, the Iranian people, the innocent Iranian people who are involved in that. But it's like, well, at this point, we can all of us can agree, pretty much everyone with a decent head on their shoulders agrees that what's going on there is horrific and wrong. We all agree that war is wrong against innocent people. We all agree that rape is wrong. We all agree that you know, financial slavery is wrong. A lot of people are starting to agree that things like digital ID and that are wrong. There are just these little details which we differ on, and people cling on to those and let them be a barrier to kind of you know, a common view of things, and that's what we need to overcome. And I've tried to do that. I mean, Rob, you may have seen I think both of you may have seen a private Facebook post I made recently, and you look at the people who like that post, and they're people from all across the political spectrum, because the things that I'm expressed concern about in that post are really, really they're shared concerns. Yeah. Or they should be, at least. And I think that those are the things that we need to focus on. And actually, that's one of the reasons that I'm personally less interested in the whole immigration thing than I used to be. That's not to say that I think that it's a good thing that there's been this mass immigration, but it's to say, in my view, I think that that ship has kind of already, that horse has already bolted, so to speak. That milk has already been spilt. There's no undoing the mass immigration that's happened into Britain. And no matter how much Rupert Lowe might talk about remigration and whatnot, in my view, it's a fantasy to think that that would happen. So I would rather start focusing on the things that we can still fix, in society, the things that we do still have some control over. None of us have control over the borders. So there's nothing really that we can do about that. But what we can do is we can decide whether our children are homeschooled. We can decide whether the family members and people that we care about are watched over when they go out walking at night. We can control our own food supply by growing our own food. We can even move to the middle of nowhere and have our own water supply and our own supply of solar power and whatever. There are so many things that we can still control. And I feel like it's time to... This is just my opinion. You guys might disagree, but I feel like it's time to let go of those things which we can't control, such as the porous borders of Great Britain.
Okay. Yeah, good points. Can I throw something in a left-hander now as well?
Yeah.
It's just a sort of overarching thing as well. We're talking about these sort of like this idea about everything being confused and being designed to be confused, so that people are confused and they're looking for an answer and this and that, all the rest of it. Which is, obviously that's the plan in one sense. And you go back to Reagan, and also coincidentally what Trump's doing now as well, which is this idea about disclosure. So you've got the Steven Spielberg movie Disclosure Day, which is coming out soon, and I've seen the trailers for that, because I'm very interested in that aspect of things too, because I tend to see things in the context of very much a battle on another dimensional level, as well as the very practical one of the day. So this thing about the threat of the other, and Trump's vague promises to be able to talk to people about the so-called alien thing or whatever it is. I can't see that he's going to be able to do anything or say anything at all, because I genuinely don't think that these people know at all what they're dealing with. I think it's as much difficult for them to put their finger on as it is for anybody else, because I think it's an occult phenomena, but I also think that it's the overarching animator of everything that's going on at the moment. So I tend to see things in these very broad terms as such. If you know what I mean, it's like maybe the ultimate unsettler or the ultimate rug pull is something that they're planning coming up now. And we've talked about this thing with the so-called Project Bluebeam or whatever it is. Are we going to be subject to some gigantic deception at some point soon?
Very, very good question. Are we not? But we've been subject to that many deceptions over the last 25 years. I can't see how much further they can fucking take it. That's the thing, you know.
Well, you look at stuff like, the rumours that Netanyahu is dead, and you see these very credible looking videos coming up on YouTube, and they're all fake.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at things that I've seen that I've not had a chance to watch this morning about the biolabs, the US biolabs in Iran. The fact that Iran went along with the pandemic.
Wow.
The fact that we're closing the whole Strait of
Hormuz.
It benefits the climate lockdowns, doesn't it? The energy crisis. It's all stage managed. You know, Trump's a character in the biggest shit film in fucking history. Just as much as Bojo is. Just as much as Jeremy Corbyn is.
Literally actors. But actually, if I could just comment on that, because Rob said at the very beginning something about, I'd written somewhere about the Iran thing being primarily about the control of the oil supply and leading to Agenda 2030. Just to clarify, I didn't say that that's all that it is and that that's the only thing going on there. But here's something very speculative, and this is a huge what if, right? Iran, like people who've been paying attention to geopolitics have known for decades that Israel were going to come for Iran at some point. Iran will have known that Israel is going to come for it at some point. Now, what if actually the Iranian leadership was, and this is a huge what if, this is not what I necessarily believe, this is just for consideration. What if the Iranian leadership was taken over by Zionists many, many years ago already, but has continued to act as though it is, on the other side, so to speak. And then Trump comes in, the Trump card comes in, and he helps Israel with its war on Iran, which immediately Iran's first thing is to close the Strait of Hormuz and, this whole global supply chain of oil and everything. That furthers Agenda 2030. At the same time, Trump is destroying America, which again is something that conspiracy theorists have speculated about for decades. Going back a long, long way, they said, the plan is eventually the New World Order will be, they need to destroy the West and migrate power over to the East. It seems to me that this war could actually be the death of America, both in economic terms and in terms of reputation, because, who's going to trust America after this? And economically, this could be not just the death of America, but the death of the whole West. Meanwhile, what if the Iranian regime, which has actually been co-opted by Zionist interests, is going to arise as the new power in the East? And this was all by design the whole way along.
Are we talking
very speculative?
Are we talking crypto Jews? Yeah,
but either crypto Jews or just another Zionist-controlled government, as America has been. What if the Iranian government is already Zionist-controlled, but has been playing up to being on the opposite side of things? Well, and the reason that I mention this is because I can't remember what I was going to say there, but I don't know what if there. You mentioned the biolabs, that was it. Yeah, as you said, Iran, they were on board with the whole pandemic thing. They didn't stand up and say, no, this is bullshit, it's just the flu. So in my view, I don't think that any country that validated the COVID pandemic can be entirely trusted, and that includes Iran.
Absolutely. I've lost my train of thought. I was just going to jump in again, and we were talking about crypto Jews.
But it's just to finish quickly, it's very, very speculative there, and I don't want anyone to take that as a cast iron belief, because it could well just be that Iran are the last remaining good, or as good as can be, nation state left that aren't controlled by these globalist powers, and they are genuinely fighting a war for their survival at the moment. It could be that.
Yeah, it is speculation that, but cryptos. So it's definitely the Saudis are crypto Jews anyway. Those are the Saudis are basically the royal family. There seem to be connected at the hip. Mm-hmm. So they've played one off against the other for God knows how long. And you've had the Dolmais as well in Turkey and stuff, and that all goes back to sabotage every stuff as well, doesn't it? So you've got this kind of like tradition of being able to dress up as the enemy and infiltrate fully into their backyard. So it's a possible, mate. It's a very possible.
You only got to look at how many members of British Parliament have got dual British and Israeli citizenship now, and particularly back in the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Curiously enough, literally the entire Bojo's cabinet, pretty much all of them are dual British and Israeli nationality. Does that say something to you? Curiously enough,
So for a 0.2% of the world's population, they seem to really get around and into very influential positions.
It is a massive one, Rob. You're going to fucking love this. I was researching some astronomy, and I was looking for a name for a star that was blue. And one of the actual stars that are blue, one of the blue giants in the sky, which we can see via the medium of telescopes, is called Omicron. And it's a blue star, but it's also named after a Hebrew deity.
Is it? Omicron? It's one of the Shema Hamfarash, which is the 72 names of God, I'd imagine.
Well, it's curious, that connection, don't you think? But there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of the right-wing conspiracy theories.
No, more of those, please.
Oh, okay. Where were we? Dan, take it away.
I think I would kind of move on from what I just said, these very speculative ideas, by just saying that it's very easy to kind of get bogged down in, is it this, is it this, is it that, is it, and that I think is kind of the trap. And I'm sort of realizing more and more that possibly that's the game that they've been playing, is keeping us engaged in this whole drama of trying to guess what they're doing and what's really going on in the world. And I think what we need to be doing rather than that is looking to, okay, what steps that we need to take as individuals and families and tribes, which sets us in good stead regardless of what they're doing, regardless of what their plans are. How can we position ourselves to be prepared for that? Whether it is a new Eastern world order, or whether it is going to be a continuation of the Western Zionist world order, or whether it's all about confusion, or even whether it's this attack on Iran actually represents like the fall of civilization. Whatever it represents, what do we need to do? Well, I keep coming back to the same thing: self-sufficiency. I think in the case of all of these things, the answer is always the same. Our own security, as we were talking about earlier, with regards to vulnerable members of our community, that needs to be taken back into our own hands. Our food chain needs to be taken back into our own hands. Our water supply, our energy, our electricity, all the skills, our sense of community, our sense of entertainment, even, all of these things. Because, this even ties in the stuff we were talking about cancel culture there, and appealing to the gatekeepers of the music scene. Well, I agree with you, Rob. We shouldn't have to do that. But the only way that we can have a musical entertainment network of sorts without appealing to those gatekeepers is to completely take that into our own hands. And that would mean sort of reverting back to, what you guys would have done back in the day, squat gigs, as well as just playing, acoustically around a campfire for a group of people that we trust and know.
Yeah, I said that 2 years ago when we got cancelled and we were talking about it amongst ourselves as a band. I said we've got to create our own scene. Yeah. We have to do that. It's like back to 1981, 82 again, and doing it for ourselves. And no one's cancelled. And if you're an adult and you want to have a conversation and discuss someone's beliefs or worldview, then do it in an adult way. But no one, you've got to do it for yourself. And exactly as you say, Dan.
Yeah, do it yourself. That's right. DIY.
As far as being concerned about what's going on in the world, well, it can be very demoralizing and very diminishing if you start taking it all on your own shoulders. Mm-hmm. But you hit the nail on the head there when you're saying that we shouldn't be concentrating really on what's going on, because there's fuck all we can do about it. It's outside our sphere of influence.
Yeah,
we should be making a list of things
that are within our sphere of influence and focusing on them.
Yeah, that's good. What can we change about our lives? Mm-hmm. What can we do that's right? What can we do to protect ourselves? Yeah, it's perfect, and again, it makes sense to me, because the endless array of theatre characters that pop up and different causes every couple of months, it's bewildering to most people. And again, it's got happening back to what we were saying earlier about people being ground down gradually and demoralised and not knowing which way to turn. Or in Yorkshire speak, you don't know your ass from your elbow. So
it's diffusion of attention, isn't it, as well? The fact that we've got so much input coming in that we need to develop our own means of filtering that.
You'll never see the enemy. You'll never see who the enemy's true face is, or its position is always oscillating. You'll never ever see it. It's always in the shadows. There's nothing.
But the information overkill is the thing, really, isn't it? Is that, because we have probably with the three of us here as well, we're probably people that like to be able to solve problems. We like to be able to assess situations. So traditionally speaking, people would say borderline paranoid, hyper aware, perhaps in some respects about stuff. So you tend to you project scenarios into your future or into your immediate future and see what you can do about it. So this is a remedial step that Dan provides here, which is basically, start to it's the old AA thing, isn't it? It's like, Lord, give me the help to do stuff about stuff I can do stuff about, basically. So it's like that. It's like, what? Don't waste your energy frittering it away on speculative ideas outside of your immediate environment.
Well, by the same breath, I mean, I wouldn't waste my energy, truthfully, on I'm going to say Rupert Law, because Rupert Law is just another theatre character. He's appealing to a different demographic and a different group of people who've got different concerns. He's just another pressure valve. Let's not forget that Rupert Law invested in mRNA technology during the scamdemic. So,
I heard that, but that seems to be rather it was a part of investment, blah blah, that went in somewhere. So who knows? I mean, don't put your eggs in any basket at all. But what I do like is the sort of is a clear stream of consciousness developing, which seems to be outside of the general mainstream. My point earlier on was about appealing to a voter base that hasn't voted ever before or has not been involved in any way with the political process. So perhaps there's some hope in that people will start to organise or do things for themselves and be aware in their own communities. I don't know.
Well, if you go into any working class community and you ask them who they vote, most people will say, I don't vote because they're all the same.
Yeah.
They'll never change anything for me. They'll never do anything for me, and they'll never address any of my concerns.
It used to be Labour, though, didn't it? So,
yeah, it used to be Labour, but Labour, again, has been co-opted by a bunch of fucking crooks and paedophiles. Labour is the paedophile party, no matter what anybody says. The Tories, they were traditionally pederasts. Labour's just all-round paedophiles, so...
Bugger boys.
Pardon?
Bugger boys. Listen, I've got to go because my battery is saying it's just about to die here, so I'm going to wave you guys off and let you finish off the conversation between yourselves. But it's been an absolute honour again chatting with you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rob. Yeah, I think Rich and I will wind it up in a moment anyway. But great to speak with you.
All right. Before we go, doing things for ourselves, Rob, and this is going back to a couple of messages what we exchanged last week. About being jaded with music just because, and I said to you, start something new, don't let past experiences, set out your future for you. You can do it again. And I want to see more music out of you. And I've got you on record now of me saying it to you in public. I want to see more music from you. And many, many other people do.
My dear boy, I must wait for the mules to settle on my shoulders.
But the thing is, doing it for ourselves, we don't need these idiots to have a scene.
Yeah.
That's it, we don't need these people. If we don't need these people and their political opinions, although we need to encourage dialogue, we certainly don't need it to make music.
No, we proved that once before.
Yeah.
Do that again.
I'm saying I have faith that at some point you'll come back to the game.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, and I'll come back with an accompanying fanzine with some 3 chords in it as well.
Oh, that sounds like what? Like Smash It Up or
like the Sniffing Glue.
Yeah, Sniffing Glue. Yeah,
yeah. Before your time, Dan, young man. All right, gentlemen. Thanks again, Dan.
Right,
thanks
Rob,
for hosting, and good to speak to you guys. Keeping it real and also finding out possible scenario solutions. It's good. It's positive. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rob. And I look forward to speaking with you privately or publicly again.
Nice one.
Cheers, Rob. Right, well, Rich, unless there's any sort of final points you wanted to make, which you're very welcome to do, maybe that's a good place to call an end.
I think it is, yeah. I think you're right. I think we've had a good conversation. Thank you again, Dan. It's been fantastic. And again, I think really, I love listening to your point of views, as I always tell you to your face anyway, because you're not only a fantastic musician and a fantastic friend, you're one of the most balanced people who I know and well-spoken. And everything you say to me is incredibly well thought out. So there you go.
Thank you, mate. No, I much, yeah, that means a lot, mate. It really does. And it's, I mean, this has been one of the great things, hasn't it? About, I mean, you and I knew each other before COVID, but it has brought people like us closer together, and in some ways, we should be grateful for it.
I feel blessed. Absolutely, I feel blessed for you. I feel blessed for Mark and Alex and everything else. I feel blessed for Queen Gertrude of Saxony next door, Alan's, the Cardinal's girlfriend, howling in parts. But yeah, let's wrap it up. I'm going to take the dog out and do whatever's needed. So yeah, thanks again, Dan.
As always, there are other things that we could have said, but that will be for Wolfshead Roundtable number 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get this out to the people.
Pile of radioactive rubble, which is likely to happen. But there you go. So,
I don't know. Well, that's a whole other thing. I'd love to hear Rob's view on that as well, about whether nukes actually exist. So or whether Iran has nukes, because I mean, if they did, they would have used them. But I mean, there's that whole theory that nuclear bomb doesn't even exist and that it's actually just a threat.
But we're going into moon landing territories.
Yeah, that is getting,
conspiracy there. And why don't you go to ask everybody in Japan? And I think that kind of I think they'd have a different.
That was a nuclear reactor, wasn't it? But anyway, I'm not saying that I know that this for a fact. It's just another fun thing to speculate about. But hopefully we won't find ourselves in nuclear rubble.
Yeah, absolutely no. Or even in I don't know. No. Anyway, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a minute. So yeah, it's been fantastic. Right, I'll see you again shortly.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Nice one. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, take care, man. Bye.